Well, it's been 2 years since Fast and Furious 7, so you know what that means. It's time for another one. We caught a midnight screening of Fast and Furious 8 and recorded every single brand that appeared in the new movie, and put together a list of the top 10 most visible product placement brands in Fast and Furious 8, The Fate of the Furious. Number 10, we have Bose. Now, Bose appeared in the form of headsets that were worn by the hackers in this movie. As such, the brand is associated with electronics, hacking, technology, and crime. It got about 1 minute of screen time and had its logo visible throughout most of that. Bose is a relatively common brand to appear in movies, usually in the form of audio equipment. It's recently appeared in such movies as Need for Speed, 50 Shades of Grey, or The Accountant. It's also appeared in a trailer for the upcoming Tom Cruise movie The Mummy, so we can expect to see a lot of it in that movie as well. At number 9, we have Bentley. Now, it might surprise you, but Bentley has actually never appeared in a Fast and Furious movie up until now. It appears in Fast and Furious 8 in the form of a Continental GT driven by Tyrese Gibson. It gets about 1 minute of screen time, has its logo quite visible, and as such is the 9th most visible brand in the movie. Bentley isn't exactly a common brand, but it still appears every now and again in high-profile movies, most recently in 2016 in Ride Along 2 and The Accountant. Number 8, we have Ford. Now, Ford isn't exactly a brand that's part of the fabric of the Fast and Furious franchise, but when you're talking about cars, it's hard for Ford not to be part of the conversation. Ford appears early in the movie in the form of a classic car in the Cuba opening scene, which takes part in a drag race, and later on in the movie in the form of passing cars, such as Ford Crown Victoria taxis in a New York sequence. Ford's never been an intricate part of the Fast and Furious franchise. Movies in which it's appeared far more visibly include Need for Speed in 2014, The Accountant in 2016, or most recently Logan. At number 7, we have Mercedes, another brand that we don't necessarily associate with the ethos of the franchise, but which has a history of appearing in the movies, most notably in Fast and Furious 7, where it appeared very visibly used by the villains. In Fast and Furious 8, Mercedes appears here and there in the form of vans, limousines, G-Class wagons, and most notably a Mercedes-AMG, which is driven by Ludacris in the New York sequence of the movie. Number 6, we have Dell. Dell has appeared here and there in the previous movies, but it was in Fast and Furious 7 that it all got almost 4 minutes of screen time and really became a major product placement partner with the franchise. It continues this in Fast and Furious 8, appearing mostly in the form of servers and monitors in the control room of the villain Cypher, played by Charlize Theron. Dell is one of the most visible product placement brands in movies, actually coming in as the number 1 product placement brand of 2016. It does this by appearing in dozens of blockbusters every year. But if Fast and Furious 8 does as well at the box office as expected, this might become one of Dell's biggest product placements of all time. At number 5, we have Apple. Apple has also appeared here and there in previous movies, appearing in Fast and Furious 5, not being in Fast and Furious 6, and then coming back relatively visibly in Fast and Furious 7. In Fast and Furious 8, iPhones and iPads are used by loads of characters throughout the movie, giving the brand lots of screen time and making it the 5th most visible brand in Fast and Furious 8. At number 4, we have another newcomer, Hisense. Now, this is a Chinese electronics manufacturer which has only ever appeared in one other Hollywood blockbuster, San Andreas starring The Rock. In Fast and Furious 8, Hisense appears in the form of televisions throughout a lot of the movie, and hence associated with technology and government use. At number 3, we have Dodge. Now, Dodge is by far the brand that's most associated with the Fast and Furious franchise, going back all the way to the first movie in 2001. In Fast and Furious 7, Dodge was the most visible brand in the movie, but it lost its position in Fast and Furious 8. Dodge gets about 4 minutes of screen time in Fast and Furious 8, but that is way down for close to 10 minutes in Fast and Furious 7. There are 2 main reasons for this. The first is that Dominic Toretto doesn't spend as much time behind the wheel of a car in Fast and Furious 8 than he did in Fast and Furious 7. Also in Fast and Furious 8, he doesn't always consistently drive a Dodge, whereas he did for most of Fast and Furious 7. He only drives 2 Dodge vehicles in Fast and Furious 8, whereas he drove 3 different ones in Fast and Furious 7. But the bigger reason is down to Letty, played by Michelle Rodriguez. In Fast and Furious 7, Letty could be seen driving a Dodge Challenger as well as a Dodge Viper at different parts of the movie. However, in Fast and Furious 8, Letty is only seen driving a Dodge Challenger for a few seconds early on in the movie. From then on, she drives 2 different Chevrolet vehicles and a local motor rally fighter later on in the movie. And in number 2, we have Chevrolet. As we just mentioned, Letty moved away from Dodge vehicles and drove Chevrolets instead. Early on, she drives a Chevrolet Corvette C2, is also seen behind the wheel of a Chevrolet Chevelle SS. Add to that the fact that most of the government vehicles are Chevrolet Suburbans, and that in the opening scene in Cuba, Dominic Toretto drives a Chevrolet car in his race. All of this gives Chevrolet almost 5 minutes of screen time, making it the most visible car brand in Fast and Furious 8. And at number 1, we have Under Armour. Under Armour has been a staple of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, going back to his first appearance in the franchise in Fast 5. However, in Fast and Furious 7, his character took a bit of a backseat, and as such, Under Armour didn't get as much screen time. But in Fast and Furious 8, The Rock is back. He wears Under Armour shoes, Under Armour gloves, and his iconic Under Armour compression tops in many of his scenes. All this adds up to almost 4 minutes of screen time, with its logo being visible 80% of the time. Under Armour's product placement performance varies a lot year on year. It was only the 42nd most visible brand in 2016, but in previous years, beyond the Fast and Furious franchise, it's appeared in huge movies and garnered millions of dollars worth of advertising value in movies like 22 Jump Street, Avengers Age of Ultron, or The Blind Side. But with Fast and Furious 8 expected to do big things at the box office, Under Armour is going to get millions of dollars worth of product placement advertising value by being the most visible brand in the movie. Now, we spotted lots of other brands that didn't make this top 10, but personally, my favorite product placement of the movie was by Beats by Dre late in the movie. I won't tell you anything more about it, but it's impossible to miss and it's really funny. Thanks for watching our video. If you'd like to find out more about our services or the methodology behind our study, please contact us at info@concavebt.com or visit our site www.concavebt.com. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more videos about brands and entertainment.